J-Tech Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. It's America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. And now, here are your hosts, Tom Bastek and Mike Jacobs.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in. It's America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. I'm Tom Bastek.
I'm Mike Jacobs. How you doing this week, Tom?
It's another beautiful week, Michael. I'm happy to be here. How about you, man?
Oh, feeling light and lively. Light and lively. Wait, isn't that was that a kind of yogurt or something? Light and lively? What is that?
Oh, I think it's one of those yogurts that has the antibodies in it that make you poop better.
Something like that.
The probiotics or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Activia.
Yes, indeed. Anyways, off to a good start here on this game show podcast.
Wow, man. We are already talking about bowels, and we're like 2 minutes in. That's impressive.
We haven't even gotten Christian in here yet.
Yeah. That's terrible. All right. Well, we got episode number 24.
I don't know. That's 24, right? That's a thing.
I think that's a thing. Plus, it's Win Ben Stein's Money, which was one of my favorites growing up.
Yeah. It was... I hit a big nostalgia nerve that I didn't know I had. I hadn't watched this show since it was like new and on the air, and that was like in my late high school, early college years.
Right.
And when I started watching, I was like, whoa, like I'm getting nostalgia for a thing that I never even thought about having nostalgia for. So it was
This was the first week that I told my wife what the show was we're doing, and she's like, "Oh, I know that one." I was like, "Great, thanks."
Wait, is that to say that she didn't know other ones?
No,
like
she knew Wheel of Fortune. Yeah, but let me tell you what. Like when we were doing like Double Dare, she was like, "Huh?" I mean, she knew it, but
yeah,
she knew it, but she didn't watch it like you and I watched it. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
When we do Card Sharks, she's like, "I've never watched Card Sharks."
Yeah, okay, so yeah, for stuff like that, for sure.
Right. Anyway. So we have a little bit of housekeeping that we need to go on over. I want to talk about, and I've got behind the show in here twice. That's how much we need to talk about that. If you guys haven't had a chance to listen, it was during our off season, if you want to call it that. We put out an episode called Behind the Show. And this episode was about the Charles Ingram scandal. We affectionately titled it The $1 Million Cough.
Yeah, exactly, because he cheated at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, won the $1 million, and did it through a scheme that involved cheating. Although I say won, it really didn't pan out very well for him. But you can learn all the details through our episode. Go check it out if you have not already. And if you have, go give it another listen. It's a thrilling story.
And the truth is that, you say, Mike, that he was cheating, but I don't know.
I mean, it's cheating.
If
you ask me.
Honestly, there was a lot of coughs, and they really singled out a bunch of coughs there.
For good reason.
They say that they are innocent, still to this day.
Well, okay, I mean, yeah. I guess they have not fessed up to it, and there is...
they were convicted.
They were convicted. They had to give the money back, and he was kicked out of the army. It was a big deal. But I suppose you are right that there is room for doubt, maybe.
Yes.
Possibly.
Yes. Well, and we discussed that in the podcast, so listen to it.
Yes, indeed. Listen to it very much, over and over again.
All right. Also, I want to thank Brian for writing in, our good friend Brian from Connecticut, who writes in quite a bit. To set us straight, Mike, and I think it's more of a faux pas that we're just using the wrong term, that we actually knew this, but it's television programmers, not producers, that actually make the decisions as to where things move in the schedule. So the producer is like, be like saying, I want to have the best slot, and the programmer's like, no, you're going to have the slot at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Yes, yeah, the producer works on behalf of the show, the programmer works on behalf of the network. And so, yeah, the programmer is the one making decisions. So, yeah, if we have indeed said producers when talking about the shuffling around of schedules, that is simply a slip of the tongue and saying the wrong term.
I honestly feel like the only time that we've used that is when we've said that we would never be television producers.
Well, clearly, because we don't even know what they do.
Exactly right. You got to have the terminology, man. Come on.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely be more careful to be specific with our terms. That's a big thing I'm big on, especially in my job and whatnot. Is specificity of terms. I think is very key. So I'm gonna definitely be on the lookout for that moving forward.
I'm still trying to remember the term from last week during.
The term I learned.
Paradigm.
It was some kind of paradox. Gosh, I forgot what it was.
Anyway, listen to Let's Make a Deal last week, and you can hear how Mike learned a new term that he apparently has forgotten as well as I have in less than a week.
Yeah, well, these things happen. There's a lot going on in the world.
There was, and especially last week, we did have also the passing of Alex Trebek, and if you didn't get to hear our thoughts on that, we did a little special segment in there last week during Let's Make a Deal as well, so check that out.
And by the way, on that same subject, Buzzer on Pluto has been playing nothing but old Alex Trebek episodes of shows on there, so I recommend checking that out. I don't know how long that's going on for, but either way.
That's so great. All right, speaking of Christian, let's take a break for the news.
Indeed news.
Light up your cigarette, crack open a beer, put the kiddos to bed. From chaos around the world to carnage in your very own front yard, it's time for the news.
All right, thank you, Tom and Mike. This is the news brought to you by BuzzerBlog.com. Now, January 7th, 2021 is going to be a very important day for game show fans across the country because ABC has announced there are 3 new shows for the upcoming season, all of them premiering January 7th. So we're going to take these one at a time. First of all, The Chase, the revival of the quiz show that's been a hit around the world on GSN in the UK. We talked about it last week, and I think maybe even the week before, where 3 extraordinary quiz players take on teams of challengers to take their money and knock them out of the game. The Chase is going to feature James Holzhauer, Brad Rutter, Ken Jennings from the Jeopardy Greatest of All Time tournament as the Chasers. So they're going to be taking on this sort of villainous role, which I'm really excited to see them in. So The Chase premiering January 7th on ABC.
Nice.
Next, Celebrity Wheel of Fortune. So we get an hour-long primetime version of the show that's been on the air all these years, Wheel of Fortune, with celebrities playing the game for their charities and having fun with Pat Sajak and Vanna White for the first time on ABC. And this marks Wheel of Fortune becoming one of the few shows to air on all the major networks. So it's went from NBC to CBS and now finally in 2021 to ABC. And third, we have a new show called The Hustler. So The Hustler stars Craig Ferguson, former star of The Late Late Show, host of Celebrity Name Game. And this show, I'll just read the description that we have here for it. Each episode sees 5 contestants collaborate to answer trivia questions worth $10,000 each. The catch: one of them is the hustler and already knows all the answers but must keep their identity a secret. Throughout the episode, the hustler can secretly eliminate 2 contestants, leaving just the hustler and 2 honest contestants, and the final 3 must collectively decide who they think the hustler is. So I love games like this. I love games where you have to bluff your way through either knowing or not knowing the answer to something. I think altogether it's going to be a really fun schedule, and I'm really excited to see all of these on January 7th, starting January 7th on ABC.
That last one I think is very interesting. I'm terrible at bluffing games, but I love them as well. So I'll be interested to see that. I wanted to go back real quick to what you had mentioned about The Price is Right being one of the few shows to be on all 3 networks. And the thing is, every time we bring up that tidbit of information, it comes up on the show pretty regularly. And every time I'm like, I feel like I'm now saying one of the few shows a lot. So much so that it doesn't feel like that few shows anymore. Obviously in the grand scheme of game shows, sure. But it seems like there is a ever-growing list of shows that have been on the big 3.
Well, there are. I mean, because of all the revivals we're getting in the past few years, that number has expanded significantly. We got Match Game. We have The Price is Right. Now Wheel of Fortune. Family Feud was on NBC for a little while with Al Roker. Yeah, so that list is getting big. But I'm so used to using that phrase. You know, one of the few. This joins the Hall of Fame of 740 game shows that have been.
The elite echelon of
Right.
Here's my question. All right, so you're CBS and you're running Wheel of Fortune right now. How are you letting Celebrity Wheel of Fortune go to ABC?
I don't know. I guess in network primetime, you get more numbers baseline than you do in syndication, where it can run at any hour of the week. But yeah, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying if I was a CBS exec, I'd be like, oh, wait a second. You guys are producing a celebrity version of that? We want that.
Right. You would think, right, that all the affiliates who have been faithfully airing the show for all these years would get a little piece of that. But
yeah, but I guess not. I don't know. That's Mike and I talked about this in the opening. The programmers of television, Mike and I are not.
Quick clarification: are the Celebrity Wheel of Fortune contestants going to be using the PEG condoms?
Preliminary research indicates yes, they are.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than a celebrity touching a PEG condom. Unbelievable. All right. How about this week in game show history, Christian?
Well, this week in game show history, we are going back to the ancient time of November 19th, 1999. Now, I remember watching this moment. I was grounded. And I remember watching this on a big staticky box TV. But I remember the night John Carpenter became the first person to win $1 million on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
I do too.
Yeah, it to me, that is one of my most vivid game show memories. I remember watching his entire run. He did really, really well, and a lot of people contend that he had a pretty easy stack of questions. But John Carpenter was from Hamden, Connecticut, and which was actually just a couple towns over from where I was living when I was watching the show. And he played a phenomenal game. Didn't use any lifelines until the final $1 million question.
Yeah, we've talked about this on the show before.
This is the one where he called his dad just to let him know that he won, right?
That's exactly it.
Well, and the question was, I don't remember what the phrase, the phrasing of it was, as in what was the question, what was the answer. But the question was about Nixon being on Laugh-In and saying "sock it to me."
Right. It was which they gave you 4 presidents, and they said which one of these appeared on Laugh-In. Yeah, and
Gotcha.
He knew the answer. Called his dad just to let him know that he was going to win $1 million.
Yeah, we talked about that in the Millionaire episode, and I got so incensed because it was like I knew that I could have won $1 million freaking dollars if I'd have gotten that on Millionaire.
The sad thing is, Mike, you wouldn't have gotten to that because the ones before that were ones you didn't know.
He just said, though, that people contend that he got a easy stack of questions. So I want to go through it sometime and play his full run and see how I do.
I got to be honest with you. I knew what a Google was in 2001. And that was the $1 million question for Charles Ingram.
Yeah, no, for sure.
That's
so,
right.
I mean, I don't know if it's the kind of thing where like the $1 million questions maybe aren't that hard, or just to certain people they aren't that hard.
Well, like I think I've said this before on the air, that every trivia question is easy if you know the answer.
That's very true. But yeah, John Carpenter made a little bit of a name for himself. He got to say live from New York at Saturday night the following weekend on SNL after winning the $1 million. And he became a celebrity in his own right for, his little 15 minutes. He was actually the husband of my parents' banker at Bank of America in West Haven, Connecticut. So she went away for a while. They went on vacation. And it was really exciting. Yeah, it was really exciting to be that close to that. I know I didn't have a lot of news, so I know Mike just mentioned he wished he could hear his entire run of questions. I actually have them all here.
Let's do it.
You'd like to go through a few of them. I mean, the first ones, like the $100, $200 are pretty easy, but if you want to maybe start at like,
I want you to start. I know we're gonna put Mike to the test here. Mike, I mean Christian, I want you to start at Let's do what's after 32,000? 64,000?
64,
Yeah.
right.
Let's do 64,000 on up.
All right. Does he get a lifeline?
Oh yeah, he can ask me for help.
All right, cool. All right, Mike, for $64,000, are you ready?
I'm ready.
What mythological beast is reborn from its own ashes? Okay, see, this is easy. For
Right?
$64,000,
Yeah.
I feel like this is
Okay,
easy.
that's-
Mike, what's the answer?
The Phoenix.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, keep going.
Okay, for $125,000, who developed the first effective vaccine against polio?
Oh.
So the choices here are
I would
Albert
have known it was
Sabin,
polio.
Albert Sabin, Niels Bohr, Louis Pasteur, or Jonas Salk.
I'm going to go with Niels Bohr because they make a reference to him in the Mystery Science Theater 3000 movie.
I'm going to say it's Pasteur.
Ooh, it's neither of them. It's
Oh!
Jonas. Yeah, Jonas.
It is
Salk
Jonas
was the
Salk?
first one. Yeah, Albert Sabin created the first effective oral vaccine against polio. So he was a little bit of a trick answer.
Interesting.
But yeah,
Okay,
Jonas
what's
Salk
the
was
next?
answer.
What's the next one up?
Okay, so the next one is for $250,000. Which of the following is not a monotheistic religion? Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, or Christianity?
Hinduism.
Right.
Yeah, that's easy.
These are pretty easy. For
Yeah, go-
that was $250,000. That was the third to last question in his stat.
Jesus.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. I have one more then for $500,000.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let's do it.
What architect designed the glass pyramid in the courtyard of the Louvre? Philip Johnson, Le Corbusier, Frank Gehry, or I.M. Pei?
I'm going to go with Corbusier.
I'm going to go with I am Pei.
Yeah, Tom would have won $500,000. It's I.M. Pei.
Damn. Well
Yeah.
done.
Yes. But I mean,
Okay, so-
honestly, though, if you think about it, if you could have gotten to 64,000 at that point, Mike, and you hadn't used any lifelines, you could have used your lifelines on the two that you didn't know, and probably pushed through to get to that $1 million question.
That's true. Yeah, because you know what? The Jonas Salk one, I could have been convinced if a lifeline led me to that, I would have been easily swayed because that was what I was thinking second. But for some reason, I don't know why, but I'm also picturing a fictional character with that name or a name very similar to it. I don't know why.
Kristen, that's pretty awesome. All right, speaking of questions, we've got our Stump the Chump question for you this week. And, we're doing Win Ben Stein's Money, so we came up with a question from Win Ben Stein's Money. Are you ready?
I believe I'm ready. Let's hear it.
All right, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, so a concept made popular in Ben Stein's Money was the idea that contestants had to wear a dunce cap in certain situations. In this case, it was if they answered in the form of a question, a la Jeopardy, they were forced to wear a dunce cap for some amount of time. This concept was repeated in what other contemporary game show? In other words, around the same time as Win Ben Stein's Money, what other game show featured contestants wearing dunce caps?
Okay, so if we're talking around the time of Win Ben Stein's Money, we're in the early 2000s. And if we're in the early 2000s and we're talking about dunce caps, we are probably, most likely, hopefully, talking about one of my favorite quiz shows of that time was a show called Street Smarts. So
That's absolutely right.
I loved Street Smart. So Frank Nicotero was the host, and and you had I forget what the dunce cap did in particular. What was
I don't
what was
remember
the effect?
either.
It's something about passing it back and forth. Like if somebody got one wrong, they wore the cap, and then they would get like extra questions or half off or something. I don't know. There was a whole set of rules for it.
Yeah, I remember Street Smart. Street Smarts was a really fun show. So that was the show where they had two contestants in the studio trying to guess whether people on the street would answer questions right or wrong.
Yes.
And they did like this man on the street sort of interview. Yeah, that was a really fun show.
Yeah, it was a fun show. But so we were talking about this before we started recording.
Yes.
I think, and I don't know about the contestants themselves, but I am 99.9% sure this is not filmed on locations. They are not actually in Times Square or a mall or wherever it is they claim to be. I think they are all green screened.
Okay, let me drop something on you real quick.
Okay.
So they were on location. They were in New York. There was one particular session of taping these man on the street interviews where it was a Tuesday morning and they were out recording and they were stopped in their tracks by this really loud sound, and they turned around and a plane had run into the World Trade Center. So they were out on Tuesday, September 11th, recording man on the street interviews for Street Smarts when all that happened.
Wow.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Amazing, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
See, this is why I love Stump the Chump more than any other reason, is because this is when we get this amazing tidbits of knowledge that we would have never gotten otherwise.
And you know what this does is it changes. I mean, I didn't have a problem with Street Smarts. I always thought it was just kind of low budget cheeseball and fake. But with knowing that it is real, I now want to give credit to the production crew for lighting it so well and for allowing people to get so close to them without ruining the camera shot, and for not having a crowd gather around to cheer people on.
Yeah.
And not having people like flip off or moon the camera. Like, none of that happens on the show, which is partially why I thought it was fake, because like people are not looking at the camera. There's not a crowd. And Tom mentioned this, that people walk by in the background so closely that it looks like it's too close, like it's on a screen or something.
It had to be fake. Yeah.
But it must just be a framing and lighting and depth of field kind of thing.
Well, I know that there were a few times where, when I graduated high school, I went to acting school for a while, and my school was right outside of Times Square. So to get to my school, I had to walk by where they were filming the wraparound segments for the People's Court. And so they had, the little attorney, Harvey Levin, with his microphone asking questions of people on the street. And it looks like it's just a crowd of people that he's talking to, sort of spontaneously. But it's very heavily roped off. Like, it's very sectioned off. And you don't see the blockades and everything on TV. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was just a really huge sort of blockade around them while they filmed the interview segments for Street Smarts.
And then they just like send people through and say, don't look at the camera or something?
Right. And even, the people that they do ask, I don't know that they weren't casted for that. There are people on the street, but I don't know that they just grab people off the street. That's never really explicitly mentioned. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I feel like this could maybe use a little bit of that trademark Christian Curry and detective work, and find out a little bit more about how Street Smarts worked. And
I should find out. I'm friends with the host on Facebook. I'll ask him. I will. You know what? I will ask him, and I'll have an answer next week.
Awesome. That's great. Also, give him my regards, because I forgot how much I enjoyed him until we started talking about this show earlier tonight.
Absolutely.
All right. So, win Ben Stein's money. We just kind of touched on it a little bit. Christian, your thoughts?
Yeah, Win Ben Stein's Money was just such an entertaining show. I mean, I know it had a couple of hosts. Jimmy Kimmel will always be my personal favorite. And you talk about really good writing, not just the questions, but even like the category names, and just an incredible show all around. And I thought the last round, the sort of best of 10 test of knowledge, they used to call it, when the final contestant would go against Ben Stein. I thought the set was phenomenal. I loved how the contestant was in this like rundown, dilapidated little hovel of an isolation
jail
booth.
cell kind of thing.
Right. And meanwhile, Ben Stein has like this luxurious leather chair, and I just think it's an awesome show. And I don't know. Because it's a great show, and of course the initial feeling for a great show is like, oh, I wish it would come back. I don't know who could take Ben Stein's place. I'm sure there are people who could do it, but I don't know that any of them would have that same charm that Ben Stein has.
I agree that you really need to walk that line of like snooty and have that air of like better than you, but while still being funny and endearing, and I think that's a really tough line to walk. I definitely do not want to see a new version of the show. I think it stands on its own, and I think it would be a sort
agreed.
of... It wouldn't do it justice.
Absolutely. All right, how about a plug for Buzzer Blog?
Of course, BuzzerBlog.com, the #1 game show website in the world. Whether you're looking for information on new shows, returning shows, casting, retro reviews, anything to do with the world of game shows and unscripted entertainment, do what the pros do. Go to BuzzerBlog.com.
All right, thank you so much, Christian.
My pleasure as always. Thank you.
All right. Remember, if you have a question that you'd like to ask Christian to try to stump the chump, please send it in via email to us. You can hit us on the site. You can send it via social. We'll pretty much take it however we can get it.
Yeah, and I think you've mentioned this before, that Christian doesn't pay attention to our social media. So if you don't want to send it privately, post it on there. He'll never see it. It doesn't matter.
He's not gonna read it. It's gonna be fine. But do at least give us the answer, though, please.
Yeah, well, yeah, I would prefer to, especially if they're going to be really hard. I don't want to do a bunch of legwork and then get the wrong answer and then have you yell at us for getting the wrong answer. And
Correct.
That's no fun.
Correct. Yeah, we do have day jobs here.
Yes, indeed.
All right, when we come back, we're going to do the gameplay of Win Ben Stein's Money. Woo-hoo. You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won.
Hello, I'm Ben Stein, and today I'm going to make history. I'm putting up $5,000 that says I know more than you. So if you're smart enough, fast enough, and if you've got the guts, you can win Ben Stein's money.
And now, take a picture. It lasts longer. Ben Stein.
There it is, the intro to Win Ben Stein's Money. You know, it's there's no real theme song there. I mean, essentially, it's just him talking, and then there's a little music, but there's not...
some classical music, and then they changed the classical music throughout, you know, the different segments of the show.
Right.
So yeah, there, classical music though it works well with the theme of the sort of fanciness of the show.
I just love when he comes out and recites music lyrics. On every episode. It's just so much fun for me.
Yeah, I like him a lot, and I like that he's not just the character that he was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Which is funny because, like, anybody who's our age, that's where we know him from, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But so much more than that. But although, I don't know, you were watching an episode earlier because I was hearing you, I was listening to it, and he made a callback to that character.
Yeah, he did. Anyone? So it's funny. I don't know if you use the Calm app, but they have sleep stories on there, which are just these like half-hour someone softly talking about something.
Sure.
And they have one of. And it's just labeled as teacher from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right? And I'm like, okay, well, it's obviously not Ben Stein because they would have labeled it as Ben Stein. But right. I would really like to hear someone just in a droning voice to talk about like physics or voodoo economics, like he talks about in the movie, whatever. But it's some guy just doing the bit from the movie. Oh. Like he even does the Bueller over and over again, and it's like that's not what I'm trying to listen to some dude talk in a boring way about something boring, not hear someone do a bit from a movie.
Yeah, is there user submitted stories? Is that what that is?
No, well, I mean, I don't think so. Yeah, it's not great. All the other ones have been fantastic, but that one was a big letdown. Anyways, we are way off topic. So on the gameplay of When Ben Stein's Funny, it's going to take place over the course of 3 different rounds. In the first round, you have 3 contestants. They're pitted head-to-head against each other, a battle of trivia. Ben is the host of this round, and he starts out with $5,000 in his bank. The contestants are then presented with a board of 5 categories, each of which has a sort of joke or pun title. Think of the more clever Jeopardy answers, Jeopardy categories, but maybe a little more blue and risque.
Right. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the categories from Remote Control.
Yes, very much so. Exactly like that.
Yeah.
And then, the contestant, whoever is in control, quote unquote, gets to choose the category, and then it reveals a certain amount of money. In the first round, it's anywhere from $50 to $150, but in $50 increments. So really just either 50, 100, or 150. And so Ben, like I said, is the host of this round. So he asks the question, and then it's a toss-up. Contestants ring in to guess their answer, and if they're correct, they earn the money, and it's deducted from that $5,000 that Ben Stein had in his bank. What I did want to point out, the ringing in on the game is like a fancy little desk lamp on their podiums that they turn on. I like it.
That's great.
There's a lot of like just neat little fancy touches. We'll talk about more of that in the history, but there's a lot of little fancy expensive rich person's office touches to the show that I like.
Yeah.
So yeah, they get the right answer, get the money. If they get it wrong, there's no penalty. And another contestant can guess in and guess it. Even though there is no penalty for a wrong answer, there is a penalty if you answer in the form of a question, obviously as a jab towards Jeopardy. I think you get a warning on the first time you do it, but then if you do it again, you have to wear a dunce cap for the rest of the round.
Right, and you heard us talk about the dunce cap during the news.
Yep.
You know, with Street Smarts, that would like stay on for the whole round, but for this, you should get to take it off if after a little while. But the truth is, this is a half an hour show, and how many times could you possibly say it? Except for the one guy who, even when he had the dunce cap on, still did another Jeopardy formed question.
Okay, so first of all, after you've already been told twice and you're now wearing a dunce cap because of it, you think you'd learn. But second of all, it's weird to me that that's an instinct, right? Because isn't the whole thing that like people go on Jeopardy and forget that they have to do that? Like,
yeah, I guess so. I mean, you got to remember though. I mean, okay, if you're going for a trivia show, like going out for it to be a contestant, you're probably watching Jeopardy every night.
Yeah, I guess if you're in that mindset, that's what's in your head.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I feel like that's not that uncommon.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. It definitely is not. I just think it's odd that the opposite way of answering a question has become now the norm way that people approach trivia.
There you go. There you go.
All right, so let's say the contestant gets it right. They then get a follow-up $50 bonus question, and that's usually going to be sort of in the same category, related somehow to the other question. Like, if the question will be like, who's this character in a TV show? It'll be like, name another character from the TV show, something like that. Right. And if they don't get it, then it again goes to the other contestants to buzz in and get it right. So yeah, it's not just a bonus question for the person who got it right. Anybody could theoretically get it. And then after that question goes through, the question or the category is wiped off the board. A new one is presented, and whoever got that last question right is in control and chooses next. And then, so yeah, play just kind of continues like this until time for the round runs out. They get a minute warning, or I guess it's sometime less than 2 minutes is when they're told that they're running out of time. And then when the round ends, the lowest scoring contestant of the round is eliminated, and their money is returned to Ben's bank. And then, so we move into the second round where Ben Stein is now replacing the eliminated contestant and is playing as a contestant on the show.
And that's where the co-host would then ask the question.
Exactly. So yeah, I was going to say traditionally, but I guess originally Jimmy Kimmel would then become the primary host, presenting the categories and asking the questions and whatnot. And so, yeah, the second round, it pretty much plays the same way as the first round. There's more money for the questions. And, of course, Ben can ring in and get questions right. He doesn't, earn money from the bank. He just prevents other customers. Prevents other contestants from being able to take, quote-unquote, his money.
Right. Let's stop there for just 1 second. Is this really his money?
Well, so that's the thing. Yes. In that he is getting paid for the show. He has a paycheck. No matter what happens on the show, he gets paid. Okay. In addition to that, at the end of every episode, whatever is not won from the contestants is added to a pool, and at the end of the season, that pool is added to his paycheck. So yes, he is legitimately playing to earn more money. The better he does at the show, the more money he earns for being on the show.
Now, see, that makes me happy. That's I believe more in it now. That's great.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not literally his money that he puts up, but right. it will be his money if he
wins it, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes.
Very, very good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool little twist. Okay, so where were we? Yes, end of the second round. Again, same deal when time runs out. The the lowest scoring contestant is eliminated, and now the winner of the second round and Ben go off to play the final round. So at this point, the contestant has sort of locked in their winnings. Whatever they have right now, they're going home with no matter what happens. But now they go into the round 3, which is known as the best of 10 test of knowledge. And this phrase, best of 10 test of knowledge, there are so many phrases in this show that Ben Stein said that were like, when he said them, it was like muscle memory to my ears. Like, just hearing Ben Stein say the word best of 10 test of knowledge, I watched this show so much that as soon as I heard it, I was like saying it along with him. It was like hearing an old Beatles song for the first time in 20 years, you know?
Right.
Yeah, it was wild. So in this round, the contestant and Ben are each put in their own separate isolation booths, and so they can't hear each other's answers. And I just found out, this is the thing I always wondered. They put headphones on, so I knew there was something in there. I figured it wasn't just for looks. But I found this out doing research for this episode. They're actually playing the Ride of the Valkyries, classical music in the headphones. Yeah,
I love it. That's great.
And then, the contestant gets to choose whether they go first or second, and they're just given 60 seconds to answer 10 rapid-fire trivia questions. They can pass or not answer or answer wrong if they want, whatever. It's totally fine, but it does pass the question, and it does not come back around. Sometimes in game shows, you'll pass, and then they can come back to
they'll
it.
Circle back, yeah.
Yeah, Family Feud does that in their final round.
Sure.
This one does not. If you pass, you're gone. You only get 10. But that's also kind of... It's not really like a punishment because sometimes people don't even get to all 10 questions. Like, it takes time to read the questions, and they're hard questions. And
right.
You're not going to get time to get around to them because you only got 60 seconds.
Right.
It's just you answer as many of the 10 questions as you can, and then whoever goes second does the same thing, whether it's you or Ben. And whoever gets the most questions right wins. If it's the contestant, they get all 5,000 of Ben's money. If not, they kept what they won from the first rounds, and Ben banks the rest. And like I said, it is actually given to him. It goes into a pool that goes into his paycheck.
And it's a quick game, man. It's 22 minutes. It's fast. It's a half-an-hour show.
It is fast, and
they don't get a lot of questions in. That's the interesting thing.
Well, I didn't remember it being that way, and it doesn't feel like there's a lot of dilly-dallying. It doesn't feel very like overly complicated, or like there's things going on other than trivia.
Right.
But you're right. There's not. They don't get a lot of questions, and it does go by pretty quickly. And I think part of it too is that. In the last round, you're hearing the same 10 questions twice, right?
Sure.
So you're essentially getting a bonus round 2 times. So I think that's going to eat into the time of the regular show a little bit.
Plus they because the names of all of the categories are like such big deals. They're like play on words and they're blue, and so you get a laugh after each one. It's really a joke, and you got to remember this was on Comedy Central, so
right. It is more jokes than trivia.
It was expected to be funny, but like it takes them forever to do the categories, and then there's a new category every time someone gets a question right, and they take time with that. Like there's not a lot of questions, and you can get if you can even not answer one very easily in the first round and be gone.
Well, and so here's the other thing. Not only is there not a lot of questions, there's not a lot of money. Like in the grand scheme of game shows, $5,000 is not a huge grand prize.
No, it's not. I think most people that are doing this one though are doing to say they beat Ben Stein. That's what they.
Well, I guess that's true. And I know initially when the show was pitched, Ben wanted it to be 10,000. But the producers thought that would end up being too costly, and so they went down to 5. But I don't know. I mean, because it was even at a time like Comedy Central is at its heyday at this time in the late '90s, early 2000s, like that, and like that's right when South Park is along and the Daily Show, and they're like really, really, really taking off. It seems to me like the money would be there, but who knows?
They want to make everything as cheaply as possible. That's how you make money.
Yeah, or why not even just say it's. $10,000 for the contestants, but $5,000 for Ben or something. I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah, who knows? Anyway, well, that's interesting. And, not a lot of people have gotten all 10 right either.
No, and that's the thing. for as few questions as they get, they do a really good job with them, and they do a really good job with ramping it up over the course of the game. Like the round 2 questions are significantly harder than round 1,
Right.
and that best of 10 test of knowledge is very, very difficult. We'll talk about more in the history, but Weird Al was on there. He did terrible at that round. And that's
which is
not
unlike,
right?
which is unlike him. I
That's
mean, it
what
really
I'm
is.
saying.
All right, well, let's talk about history in just a minute, though. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll do that. Sounds good?
Sounds great.
All right, you've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. And we're back, episode number 24, segment number 3, the show that we are featuring this week. Michael?
Win Ben Stein's money. And the history here, it's a little short. I mean, the show ran for a long time, but surprisingly not very like scandalous or anything during its run. The history's a bit brief, but July 28th, 1997 is when we saw the debut with, of course, Ben Stein as the host and Jimmy Kimmel as the co-host. Of course, Jimmy Kimmel now well known for his late night talk show endeavors, but this was, I believe this was his first foray into television. I don't know that he had done anything before this. And I mean, 1997, that was even earlier than I had remembered. Like, if you'd asked me, I would have said 99 probably. So yeah, this is going way back for him. So the show is just sort of predicated on the idea that Ben Stein is a really smart guy, really good at trivia, which is actually pretty true, as shown throughout the show, because it's all legitimate. It's all on the up and up. He does not know all the answers beforehand. This is legitimately him playing the game. And it's presented in, and we sort of touched on this a little bit in the news with Christian, that it's presented in a very formal manner. Everything has this, like, he's got in his isolation booth, it's very plush chair. Obviously the contestants is not for humor value, but the podiums are these nice fancy wooden ones, and like I said, you ring in by turning on a fancy little desk lamp, and there's just like all these fancy kind of hoity-toity accoutrements all over the place. But then, of course, that's very juxtaposed by the silly nature of the game show, the jokes of the category, and even Ben Stein himself, he's wearing a suit, but then he always wears, like, sneakers, which I'm sure is for comfort on the show, but it just fits with the idea of combining that sort of high class and low class into one package.
Yeah, I think, and again, he combines a lot of things. He has that, as you said with Christian, that hoity-toityness, but he still has the appeal of being like a regular human being that you could pal around and drink a beer with.
Right, absolutely. And I think that's, this show specifically does a very good balancing act of that. Like, that's a thin line to walk, and there are so many instances of it in this show, right? Like you can't just have a host that does it well. You can't just have categories and questions that do it well. Like, it has to be the whole package, right? And I feel like they didn't miss a beat in that sense. Like, everything about this show fits very well together in that juxtaposition. And apparently we're not the only people to say so, because over the first several years that they were on the air, with specifically the Stein and Kimmel combination, they were really the linchpin of what made the show successful. And over the course of their tenure together, they won 6. Well, actually, hang on. The show itself won 6 Emmys overall from start to finish. I don't know that all of them were together, but in '99 they both won together as co-hosts, I suppose, for Outstanding Game Show Host, which is, the top level game show host award that there is. So obviously very, very popular, very, very well received, especially in the critical realms. And then in 2000, Jimmy Kimmel decided to leave to pursue other ventures. At the time, that ended up being The Man Show, which you could argue was a questionable choice of, leaving this for that.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I couldn't. The Man Show would never be made today.
Oh, it would never be made today. And now, to their credit, they had some funny bits. It wasn't a terrible show from front to back. It was packaged in a terrible way, and like you said, you know, in the culture we have now, we're way more sensitive to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna totally trash it if for no other reason than the Man Show Boy. I don't know if you remember those sketches, but they just had, it was like a maybe 10 or 12-year-old really fat little kid that they would put in a Boy Scout outfit and just go out in public and do horribly inappropriate things. And those were always just hilarious sketches. Now, of course, I'm saying hilarious through the eyes of like a college freshman. So who knows what I think about these
You were
days.
the audience for him.
I was
great.
the audience, absolutely,
There
for
it
sure.
is.
Well, and so, like I say, you know, you could question that maybe moving on to the Man Show was a questionable move from Win Ben Stein's money, but it ended up working out for him overall because now he's Jimmy Kimmel, like one of the biggest celebrities in the world. So there you go. You know, can't argue with results. He was replaced with Nancy Pimental. I'm not actually sure how it's pronounced.
You're fine. You're fine.
And she, you know what? She was not bad. Her and Ben had a great rapport with each other. She was pretty funny and like on top of the ball and witty. And you know, usually when there's such a strong connection between people like that, when there was with Kimmel, and they leave, I think that usually ends up being the thing that drives them to the ground. But she did a good job of, you know, not replacing but succeeding him and making her own name for herself.
Right.
And actually, during this time, our old friend Weird Al, who, you know, has shown up on many, many game shows, he got to be a contestant, in the year 2000. That was very hard to not sing that, like that Conan bit, in the year 2000. He was on there with a charity episode with Matthew Sweet. I don't know if you remember him, musician from the 90s who actually looks incredibly like Mitch Hedberg. And then one of the guys from, I think, Poison, maybe, something like that.
Okay.
And in true Weird Al fashion, he did very, very well. He beat the other contestants quite handily, made it to the end round. But then I don't know if it was a crack under pressure. It felt like a very difficult run of questions to me. I didn't really know most of them either. He only got 2 of the final 10, and I think Ben ended up getting like 5 or 6. So yeah, it was not the best showing for Weird Al in that sense. But you know, you can't win them all. And he did very, very well leading up to that. So yeah, the show continues on. 2001, Nancy is then replaced with a man by the name of Sal Iacono. I do not remember him at all. I don't think I've ever seen an episode with him. He did the last season, and he's actually Jimmy Kimmel's cousin, which makes you wonder how he got the job.
He was on the Man Show too.
Oh, okay.
At some point, I don't know if it was a reoccurring character or what, but he was also on the Man Show. So obviously, Jimmy's bringing him along. Great, that's wonderful. But I mean, I don't know. I didn't see any episodes with him, so I don't know how good of a job he did.
Yeah, I can't say one way or the other. But that ended up being the 6th and final season of the show. And January 31st, 2003 was our last episode. And, you know, it's interesting. A lot of times we get many, many international shows when they're this popular. Not this time. Australia had one and Britain had one, obviously replacing the Ben Stein with... you know, I didn't even look into who the celebrities were in their versions to see if they were like...
Yeah, it was not people I knew. I can tell you that.
No, and one of them sounded like maybe it might have been like radio personalities or something like that. It was 2 people, I believe. Anyways, it was the same concept, but I think they both that lasted one season. They were neither of them were successful. So it never really took off anywhere outside of America, which makes me wonder if there's something about the show that was uniquely American.
I think there was something about the show that was just uniquely Ben Stein.
Well, I think that's really what it is. And it's all him because he is smart enough to do the show, a good enough actor and performer to host. He's funny enough to be, you know, into it, but he's still got that dry character that he did in Ferris Bueller as his, like, you know, base character. You don't find that balance a lot.
No, and you know what? I didn't go down the rabbit hole enough to figure out how they figured to cast Ben Stein because of the fact, because he was not one of the creators. It wasn't like this was his idea. It was created by 2 gentlemen, And I wonder if they knew Ben, or they knew he was smart, or they knew he was good at trivia, or what the scoop was to get him to do it. But he pulled it off better than anybody else. I mean, we talked about this a little bit with Christian too. I don't know who I could see taking the place of Ben Stein doing this again and win, so-and-so's money.
I definitely can't do it off the top of my head. As far as the personality goes, I could maybe see John Benjamin doing it, but I don't know if he's like a trivia nerd guy that would be good at that aspect of it.
Sure.
That's a very, very, very difficult role to cast, and it's interesting that none of the research either of us did led us to how he got picked. So if anyone out there knows how that came to be, the earliest I could find was, like I said, when the show was being developed, he wanted it to be $10,000 and the producers said no.
Right.
But yeah, other than that, I don't know how he got involved in the beginning of the show. I would love to know that. Because it would have to be just like someone knew he was really smart. And
anyway, what about, so we don't have any other versions of this show that came out then?
No, they did reruns of it for the year after it was canceled on Game Show Network, or maybe 2 years, something like that. But other than that, it just kind of faded into relative obscurity. I mean, I was the key demographic for this show, as I have been for many of the shows we've talked about, which might be why we're picking them, because they stick in my head.
Sure.
So like, not knowing this show feels weird to me, but then when I also think about it, like, I could very much like my nephew, for example, who's like maybe 15 now. He has no idea what this show is. I guarantee you he has never even heard of anything on this show.
Yeah, I'd be willing to say that people that are under the age of probably 30 have no idea.
You might be right. And the thing is, I would say at best these days, it's probably a trivia question of, did you know that Jimmy Kimmel used to host a game show,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, we're going to have to rate it, Michael. What's your thoughts?
I mean, I like it. It's really well written. It's really well balanced. It was I can't say that it's a product of the time, because I don't feel like it's a thing that's like, not aged well or something, but it's a product of Ben Stein. It's a product of some right place, right time combination of elements that I don't think we'll ever be able to recapture. So I think it's unique. I think it's fun. I think it's well written. All of that. I got to give it like a 4. I like it a lot. It's a great show.
Cool. All right, so we're going to give it $4. We're voting in dollars.
Dollars, of course. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm gonna go right with you. I like 4. I almost want to go a little bit more, and I think I'm going to give it a 4.25. And here's the reason why: is I think it comes back at some point. If you had told me after Monty Hall had his run with Let's Make a Deal, because that show was so him.
Mm-hmm.
That there's never going to be another Let's Make a Deal. And there was some really surprisingly awful versions of that fell miserably in between.
Right.
And now we've got another 11-year run with Wayne Brady. I kind of feel like the right person comes along somewhere, and we may get back and see it again.
Yeah, you got a point there. I would not be opposed to it if they could get the right person.
I definitely agree with every bit of what you like. I love the writing in this 100%. I love the tongue-in-cheek blue categories. I love the music lyrics that he recites, which is a gag that a lot of people do. But he was one of the first to do it, and it's fun. Mainly because I knew all those songs that he was doing, because he'd do from the 50s to the 90s basically.
Yeah.
For music. It's really good. I think the gameplay's good. Here's why I said 4.25. I'm going to come back down. I'm going to back down to 4.
Right.
And here's the reason. Not enough money given away, number 1. Number 2, not enough questions asked. They dilly-dally a little too much. I'd like to see a little bit more questions out of it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. Like we said, it is a Comedy Central show. You're the kind of guy that wants the show, so it feels like we're maybe swapping a little bit on here, but
yeah, maybe. I mean, you're absolutely right. But I mean, I got to tell you, it's still one of my faves. So 4 is the lowest I'm going to go. I'm not going 3.75.
yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think we can agree on an even 4.
All right. Well, Mike, that's all we've got time for today.
All right, Tom, thank you so much. Thank you to Christian. Thank you, Buzzerblog. Thank you, everyone who listens. Thank you, Weird Al, for existing.
And for not returning my tweets. Return my tweets, Weird Al.
Yet. Keep working on it.
Tune in again next time when we bring you the latest and greatest in the world of game shows and a brand new featured show, too.
And remember, you can catch us online, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, tellthemwhatthey'vewon.com.
Please subscribe, share, like, and drop a review if you like what you heard.
And if you didn't like it, your winnings go back to the bank.
See you next week, Mike.
Bye, Tom.
You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won. A JTech audio production. Copyright 2020. No part of this podcast may be reproduced by anyone without the express written consent of the creators. For more information or to contact us, please go to tellthemwhatthey'vewon.com. All right, Mike, what did you learn this week?
I learned that I'm now getting to that point of age where I'm getting nostalgia for things from adulthood. Like, you know, I remember this show from like my adult life. And when we went back and rewatched it, all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, all these memories I hadn't thought about in what felt like 5 years, but it's actually been like 20 years.
Yeah, it's been a while, that's for sure.
Yep.
So for me, I learned that I definitely don't see anything wrong with having the answer be in the form of a question. Like that's the new normal, and it feels normal to me.
What is You're Not Wrong?
Copyright 2020, a JTech audio production.